All right, guys, here we are, another episode of the Gospel of Fire, and I have, I think we've run across each other in passing, but we've never, I don't think we've ever said more than 10 words at a time to each other, but we're about to, Kit Dale. We're about to.
It's about time.
It's about to one bald-headed, good-looking man to another.
That's it.
So, man, I've been, just my first question as it's been, to this new area of podcasting I've been getting into, this new base I've been looking at. Why do my podcast, man? I'm not Rogan, right? Like I'm not like, you get hit up from some guy who's got, I did all right with my career and whatnot, but like I'm no world champion, so why take an hour out of your day and do a lowly podcast?
Well, because I do know who you are and I've watched a lot of your career, and it would be cool to have a conversation with you regardless if you had one follower or no followers. I feel like you're a guy that I would enjoy having a chat to, so why not?
Sweet. I feel the same way. I think this has been my message over the last couple is that one of our problems is we're not communicating with each other. We look at someone's Instagram and if it's cool, then we like it and we think we like that person until, God forbid, they say put one post out that we don't like. And then we go from like kind of liking them on the surface to like despising and hating that person, and I think that's a huge problem. We just don't sit down and talk to each other.
I agree with you 100%. I try not to do that myself, but I mean, I've also fell in that category. I see someone post something and you kind of base their whole identity on that one little thought pattern. And I try not to do that. And I know people have done that with me many a times, especially with like jokes, like things that I'm only joking about.
Dude, it's rough to be a comedian these days, bro. Right? It's rough to be a comedian. You have to go full Dave Chappelle. Right? Uh-huh. You have to go full Dave Chappelle and be like, yo, motherfuckers, you clicked on my face. You know what this is. Yeah.
My brother's directing his first feature film in a couple of weeks. And he's really nervous, and he's been asking me to take down a lot of old videos that me and him have done because he doesn't want to get nothing coming back to him because anything could be taken out of context. He's a very nice, normal person. There's nothing bad about him. But, some of the shit that we talk or film as comedy skits can be taken the wrong way.
Man, I'm in the middle of it right now. Like this video is about to come out of one of my fighters, Curtis Blades, where they followed him around for his last fight. And man, like he's got an out of wedlock daughter, and he's African-American. And dude, they filmed him for 3 days. 3 days they were with him. And the two clips they have of his daughter, him and his daughter, are one of his daughter not wanting to go to him. And then because whatever, he's standing around 30 people. Right. And then he goes over and sits down because he's not going to force it. Everyone's been there with a kid, and he's like, my daughter's trash. And that's what they put. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Right.
Yeah.
You just played into every fucking black male single father stereotype in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 days of footage. This is what you're fucking putting out.
I would try and control what they put out because I know that if someone filmed me for a whole day, they could take at least 10 to 15 minutes of shit and just make me look so bad.
Yeah. I'd look like the biggest racist, misogynistic piece of shit. And I'm a half black Jew, right? I would look awful. Awful. So, man, the connection that we have is jiu-jitsu. Are you in Australia right now or where are you?
In Los Angeles. I moved here probably a year and a half ago.
Okay. So that's in 01. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's our connection though, is jiu-jitsu. And man, for you, what was that like? I mean, Australia, bro, shit, not the easiest of scenes probably.
No, I think when I first started it was 2008 and jiu-jitsu was really fresh in Australia. I didn't even, to give you an idea, I remember seeing a Machado, there was a Machado on a front cover of a magazine, and I was thinking, is he related to Machida? That's how little I knew about anything in jiu-jitsu. It was good. I started because I was playing Australian rules football, and I was a little bit smaller, and I was I was not young, but I was very premature physically and very scared. So I wanted to look for a place to get some confidence and defend myself. So I started doing like MMA training with a guy named Rob Karmakovsky and it was more like Jeet Kune Do concept. So it wasn't strictly MMA. We were doing like weapons as well. And then we started doing jiu-jitsu, and I really enjoyed the jiu-jitsu part of it. And I started competing in jiu-jitsu, and my plan was always to do MMA, but halfway down the road, I sort of changed my mind on what I wanted to do as a career. But yeah, I started jiu-jitsu there's a brown belt, and that was quite high at the time. And there was very few black belts, and it was quite new. But since I started, I think in the first 4 years, there was a huge growth in Australian jiu-jitsu, and people started doing a lot better. I mean, now there's guys like Craig Jones and Lachlan Giles and Levi that are killing it. But when I first started, we didn't have anyone like that. I think George Soteropoulos was probably the only one doing well, and he was fighting in UFC at that time.
Right. Yeah. So you guys were like 10 years behind.
Yeah,
because that was my experience. Like I started when Amal was a purple belt, and I mean purple belt. So this was 99. Yeah, so 99 purple belt America, 1999. God, right? You have like you're not Jesus, but you have a godly status in America. Yeah. So same, very very similar things. Did you have to travel, or was it like in your town?
I had to travel. There was about an hour. Maybe an hour and 20-minute drive that I used to take to train with Robert. And then I ended up leaving him for somewhere that was closer so I could still work and train. I was living in the Yarra Valley, and I was training in Ringwood. So it was about a 35-minute, 40-minute drive. And then as I outgrew that school, I went to one in St Kilda under Peter DeBean, and he had a lot more black belts there. And that was about an hour and a half, hour and 50 minutes drive. I remember the first time I went down, I drove down there, and then I come back looking for my car, and I realized it was gone because I got towed because I parked in the wrong area. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of traveling in terms of driving in Australia. And then I started traveling more internationally, and I think I won the Abu Dhabi qualifiers as a blue belt, the Abu Dhabi Pro, the gi one.
Okay.
So that was the first time I left the country, and that was in Abu Dhabi, and that was interesting.
In your whole life, that was the first time you left the country?
Yeah. Okay. I was super nervous because I had an outstanding debt where debt collectors were looking for me for a car that I bought. So I was like, I don't know if they can stop me from leaving the country. But it was really good, and it really showed that, what you were saying, like we were 10 years behind when I went to Abu Dhabi Pro and people were pulling guard. And I was just like, what, people actually want to play guard? Like before that, I'd never seen anyone want to play guard in my life. Everyone was like, try and wrestle for the top game with really average wrestling because we didn't have much wrestling at all in Australia. I mean, we don't now, but we have a couple of good Russians that have come over and stuff like that teaching. But that was a shock for me, seeing people playing guard and efficiently. That was
my go-to, bro. I got super lucky because, like, as a big guy, I mean, this is just, what seemed like unluck turned into luck. I separated my AC joint, and it was a bad one. So I couldn't do any top because if I lost my balance and I based out, like you put your hand, whew, so I had to play like one arm guard for 3 months as an almost blue belt, white belt. But now I'm this big 220-pound guy who can play on the bottom, and we're talking 2000. There weren't many. They're like, especially like coming up, right? Like, so I just pulled guard on all these big guys, and then they were like, oh yeah, this is what I want. And then I would fuck them up and then put them on the bottom, and they were like, oh shit, I don't know what to do on the bottom, right? But that's just like, especially 20 years ago, big guy jiu-jitsu, there was no Busheshas or Ali's just like inverting and create, like that just didn't exist.
It's such a special talent when you can do that, and then you can do the wrestling as well afterwards. It's like, it's great. How's your shoulder now? I fucked my shoulder up. It's so annoying.
Mine are so bad, bro. Like mine still stick out because I've done both of them.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see through this jumper.
I can't.
Probably cannot.
Oh, yeah, right there. Yep, I see it. Yeah.
I got a fucking lump. I got one on this side, and that was from playing Australian rules football originally. But this one I did wrestling, and it was just messing around at the end of class. I was training with a wrestler, and because I was a jiu-jitsu guy that started wrestling, no one thinks you can wrestle.
Right.
So I was wrestling a guy, and he's like, I'll take you down. I said, look, I'm going to bet you a certain amount of money. I can't remember what it was, that I'll take you down. I took him down like 4 times. And then right at the end, I took his back while standing, and I bumped him up and went to put him on the side really gently. So I did it so slow and gently because I didn't want to hurt him, that he did a Granby roll, and I had no T-shirt on. It was just after, when you sweat and then you dry up, but you're real sticky still.
Yep.
And my shoulder got stuck on the ground and just separate. Like I think I had a grade 3 tear from the clavicle or whatnot to the shoulder, and it's been terrible since.
What are you going to do? You get old, or you get old and break, or you die young. And you don't do shit with your life, So, we could just sit on the fucking couch, man.
Which is what I'm trying to do right now. This is actually, I'm actually doing this podcast from my gaming. I got a new online gaming, I don't know what you call it, room, but
studio.
So now I got like this chair, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. I can fight online now.
Nice. Are you a gamer?
Yeah. I was always a PlayStation gamer, but I never really thought about anything as a career or anything like that, because at the time there was nothing. And now, like with Twitch and stuff like that, I mean, you can make good money playing Twitch and stuff.
Do you make money gaming?
No, not yet, but I will. That's the plan. I just got to get good.
Dude, what the fuck do your parents say? So first you want to do this jiu-jitsu shit, right? Like that's how you lived your life. And now you're like, yeah, I'm going to game.
Yeah.
Dad, look what you've done. Look what you've created.
I used to have, I don't know if it was similar for you, but I used to have so many arguments with my parents. I remember like big ones because I wanted to do jiu-jitsu, and I remember the words were like, you're going to be a bum your whole life, get a real job, because I wasn't making much money. I was just doing a couple privates a week. So it was like $150 a week, but I was just scratching through. But, it was a really good decision, because now with the online programs, it's, I make more money than I would have ever made by a mile, with any job that I was doing back then.
Sure. Yeah, you asked, what it was like for me. So my conversations, my parents weren't super supportive until when I got on the Ultimate Fighter. They got a little better because they're like, whoa, shit, this worked out, But my grandfather, he was never supportive. He was like, with Amal, my jiu-jitsu teacher, he was like, you need a contract with him. And I was like, no, he's never gonna guarantee me money. Like, like I have to teach the classes, and my grandfather just yell at me, where's your contract? You're going to be a bum. Same thing.
Such a different world. I mean, I don't think let's say if I do start making money online, my parents would just be like, how do you make money playing games? Like, how do people pay you to watch you play games? It is a really weird world. Even when if you went back 10 years, and to think that I would be doing what I'm doing online and as little work as it requires, I would never believe that. But there's so much opportunity now. I mean, especially living in LA, you see so many people that have very unique jobs, and they do very weird things, and they make really good money. And you're just like, what? You do that, and that's how you make money?
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about the online thing that you do. We're we're about to release our first online thing, our first digital course.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu?
How to run your school. We're going to go we're going to go about it differently than the athlete side. We're going the business side.
I think that's great. So, if I knew anything about running a business, I would be doing the same thing.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're doing. It's called, all catered towards the gym owner, the school owner.
That's great.
And their employees. So, but talk to me about that, what that process was like for you, learning how to do that.
Well, at first I had no idea it was even possible. I was talking to a friend, Nick Gregoriadis. He was living in London, I think, at the time. And he just wrote a book called The Black Belt Blueprint, I think it was called. And he sent it to me, and he's like, hey, man, have a read of this, and I'd love to get your opinion of it. So I read it, and I thought it was really good. I thought it was very well thought through. And he said, look, he goes, if you want to sell it, I'll give you 50% of the profits. And this is the first introduction to affiliate marketing I'd ever had. And so I did that. I ended up making like $2,000 in just one email. And I was just like, wow, you can make money online. So I worked with Nick, and we came up with a new product. together, and I started selling that, and I think we made like $70,000 selling that, and I was like, holy shit, this is great.
What was that product?
It was called Beyond Technique. So at the time, pretty much all instructionals were very practical, just do this technique, drill it, do this technique and drill it. And we wanted to create one that was a lot more conceptual. So it was a little bit more open for people to become more creative. So what we had, I think it was each of us had 10 concepts, and then we'd show 2 or 3 examples of that concept in use. And it went really well. And then I branched off on my own, and I started doing my own thing. And I called it the art of learning jiu-jitsu, because I wanted to, and similar to like you're taking a different market, I wanted to take a different market from just the technique videos, because I mean, for starters, you can just YouTube every single technique out there almost anyway. So I wanted to give something a little bit more. So I try to give them a bit more of an intellectual understanding as to why I'm doing what it is that I am doing. And because I had a very different training regime to what most did. And I went through the belts quite quickly. I went from white to black in 4 years, which with no prior grappling experience, and I was still working a job. And I started studying the science of learning and how the psychology behind it, how we process information. And I really try to come up with a system that not only teaches people how to learn jiu-jitsu, but how to learn, period. So how to structure training, no matter what it is that you're learning, so that you can fast track your learning and you can understand more of it and become your own teacher more so. So it was a bit of a niche in the market because no one's really doing it. There's a lot more people trying to do it now, or, and probably doing it well. But at the time I was kind of the only one doing it. So I branched off into that area, and I created the series, The Art of Learning. And then, which this last year I created The Art of Mastering Jiu-Jitsu, and it's doing really well. I think I have about maybe 13, actually I think it's 16,000 people on my products, which is good. It's not like a monthly registration or anything. It's just a one-off product, and they're doing good, and I'm bringing some more products out. But it was really good because I really enjoy teaching. One, I'm not as interested in competing as I was probably prior to my knee reconstruction. That was when I think it was 2016 or 2015, I had a knee reconstruction. I had an injury 2015. And then I kind of changed what I wanted to do with competing and stuff, because my body was never going to be the same. And I was already struggling with a lot of injuries, and I wasn't as motivated competitively as what I was before then. I'm not sure if you've had a similar thing, but you kind of, sometimes you win something big. Like I remember when I won the Abu Dhabi Pro or the Brazilian Nationals, and I was just kind of like, this isn't what I really thought it was, all this work to win something, and it kind of really it leaves you unsatisfied. You're kind of like, oh, I need to do it again to get that same dopamine hit. And
it just doesn't matter in a couple of days.
Yeah. And I kind of realized that, and I'm like, wow, I'm doing all this shit for that. So I prefer to get more into, like, I love training and I love learning and I really enjoy it, but I don't have that competitive drive, which I see other people like, Josh Hinger or something like that is in my weight division, and he lives and breathes it, or Gordon Ryan training 4 or 5 times a day. I'm like, man, I'm lucky to train 4 or 5 times a month, let alone a day.
Yeah, man, so much to talk about. I'll start with the last thing you ended on, then I have some questions. I lost it a little bit. Like I retired from pro fighting in 2011, and then I came back to competing in jiu-jitsu in like 2016, I think. So it took like a fight. So I got the bug again a little bit, but then, man, like the only thing I'd never accomplished was I'd never accomplished Abu Dhabi. I never got in, like through all, like I got second at the fucking trials 3 years, stuff like that. But then this year I got in, I'm going to be 40. Bouchesh is in my weight, Kynan's in my, I'm not like, these, I mean, it's what you said. I train, I got kids and a family, businesses. Like I'm not
different level of dedication.
Yeah. What training a lot is to me is like their one day, like you said. Yeah. And I've kind of lost it after that. Like I don't have the itch. Like I got to do ADCC and I never had before. Mm-hmm. And that was really fucking cool. And now I'm just like, yeah. So I totally understand what you're saying there.
I feel like I think everyone eventually does go through that. I mean, some people do it faster. And I think it's important for you to realize that, because there's so many times you will do things for the outcome, and you'll do all this shit you hate, and you'll sacrifice so much of your body and energy and time. And then you realize, wow, I really didn't think, I really thought it was going to give me something much more than what it really did. And maybe sometimes it does, depending on who you are. But I definitely try and choose things that I really enjoy the process of now, and that, in return, they reward you well. For example, acting or something like that. I love that because I love doing it. And if you get really good at it, well, you get very well rewarded for it.
For sure. I want to go back to your learning thing, because maybe some of my listeners don't know it, like your ideas, and I don't know it. So I want to hear, what are your ideas around like learning? And let's go learning for just overall learning.
Yeah.
And then also learning jiu-jitsu, because I have some definite ideas about learning jiu-jitsu as well. So go.
Okay. Well, first of all, when I first started jiu-jitsu, I got very bored of the technique part of training. And I hated having to drill techniques. I did it for like maybe the first couple months where we practice it, but I was at a class that it was more like, here's a technique, you play with it for a minute or two, they give you another one, and then you go straight into rolling. And I really liked the rolling portion of it. So I stopped turning up for the technique part, and I would just go into the rolling part because that's all I enjoyed doing. And I started really excelling really quickly. And I wasn't really sure. And there was me and another guy that I was staying with, and we were both very interested in, why am I progressing much faster than the others, where I'm training far less than what the others are. They're getting there, they're doing their warm-ups, they're doing the techniques, they're doing the drilling, and I'm just skipping all that and coming straight into like the positional sparring or the live rolling. And I was excelling a lot quicker. And then I started studying about learning, and there was a few things I started realizing, because I was playing I played Australian rules football, and I played at a very high level, and we had like the best in the world would come and train with us. And the one thing I noticed is they started taking out a lot of our linear training drills, right? For example, one drill was, there's two lines. You kick the football to the other line, they run straight out, they take it, they mark it, and they kick it back to you. And it's very straightforward. It's just like practicing a technique over and over again. The moment this new coach came, he changed it and he put 2 or 3 groups, and now you didn't have a set way to kick it. What you had to do is you had to get the football to either one of those 3, but now there's a defender in the middle, so it becomes problem solving. So I don't know exactly what I got to do. I've got to think, okay, I catch the ball if I can catch it, and then I've got a defender right there, so I've got to think really quickly. And our team got so much better. And what I started realizing is that when you add problem solving to training, you don't only become a much better problem solver, you retain information much longer. And I started getting really interested with that. So I started looking up the theories of learning and absorbing information. And I found that there's it's called emotional arousal technique. And it basically states that the more emotionally aroused you are, the deeper you store information. To give you an example for this, I'm sure you can remember where you were 9/11 when the two towers got hit. And you can remember where you were sitting, what TV you were watching it on. But if I asked you what you did like a week later from that, you'd be like, I don't know, I can't remember. Because you're in an emotionally heightened state, you absorb the information. And it's the amygdala, which is responsible for the fight or flight stuff. That's what dictates how deep you store information, and it's for survival. So, for example, if something happens to you and you're in a life or death situation and you're emotionally, aroused heightenedly, you're going to store that information deeper for survival reasons. Okay,
that's probably why we have PTSD too, right? It gets stored.
Exactly why. It's like a byproduct of that. But if you look at learning, it happens on a very small level. So you want to make sure that when you're learning something that you're emotionally stimulated. And the best way to do that with jiu-jitsu is through positional sparring, because there is high stakes, because it's not set. Let's say you're playing sweep or submit or pass the guard or sweep. If you get passed, you get frustrated, you get angry. If you sweep them, you get excited. There's live stakes and it's real. So what happens is you start storing information much deeper and you start remembering much better in those situations. Not only are you storing information deeper, but it's very real information. Because the body, for an evolutionary stance point, it absorbs information to survive. So it's absorbing every single bit of information that it's getting. And most of it you can't consciously even comprehend. The moment you start creating drills that are not, realistic, or they can be realistic, but they're not true. So let's say you shoot on a single leg and I do something like this, and we do a passage of that, and it's just a drill. Because it's not live, your body doesn't know the difference, but you start programming it to react in a certain way. But it's not 100% true, because it doesn't always happen exactly like that. You can try and recreate it in a cookie cutter sort of environment, but it's not exactly true. So what you're doing is you're basically tricking your body into reacting a certain way. Not only are you going to react to situations that are not 100% true, you're going to become predictable because you're doing the same patterns over and over again. So what is a much more effective way of doing a single leg, for example, a drill on a single leg, is starting on a single leg. So let's say I start on your leg, and we both say, okay, let's go. And I've got to take you down. You've got to defend. And we do that for 10 or 15 minutes. The amount of information you gather in that 10 or 15 minutes will be far greater than spending an hour of drilling one single leg, because you start seeing certain things that happen, certain, defenses that happen a lot. And you have to start figuring out how to counter those situations. And then in turn, you get so confident after a while, knowing that, well, if I get a single leg, I'm going to take people down, so that you become super creative on getting that single leg while you're doing free rolling, because you think, well, if I get that single leg, I know what to do with that single leg. Where most people that just drill the single leg, get a single leg, get sprawled on, and then they start losing confidence in even finishing a single leg anyway. They know how to get it, but they're like, oh, what's the point? He's just going to sprawl on my face or whatnot. That's like a small example of...
Can I ask you a question here?
Yeah, for sure.
So, let's just take, for example, the classic wrestler, no jiu-jitsu experience. And I'm more understanding, I hope, not like critiquing. So the classic wrestler, like what's you take a wrestler who comes in on jiu-jitsu mat, what do they all get choked out, right? They all get rear naked choked because they don't want to, you go to sweep them and they don't want to be on their back.
They flatten out. Yeah.
They flatten out. So him just training, for example, is not going to help him. He has to learn something to do. So where does that, you do need to learn, yo, man, so there's this whole position called the guard.
Yeah.
Right. So when does that come into the play?
Well, it would be straight away. So let's say I can use a wrestler. I could use even a brand new student for an example. And I do this a lot.
Sure.
Okay. So if I get a brand new student come in,
who knows absolutely nothing, no martial arts.
Absolutely nothing. The first thing I think, and I don't try and overcomplicate them, what I try and do is I go, okay, I'm trying to give them an idea of what jiu-jitsu is. Okay, the goal in jiu-jitsu is to force your opponent to submit, whether you put them in a joint lock. We all know that. Right. And then I will start sort of breaking down certain positions. And the first two positions I'll do with them is guard and passing, because I feel like it's probably one of the most common positions you're going to have and the safest for a new student. If you do wrestling straight away with them, there's a high chance they might get hurt or whatnot, depending on how athletically gifted they are or what background they come from. Obviously, if they're wrestlers, it's a little different. So I will say this is the guard, and we're going to play a little game right now. What I want you to do, I want you to pass my guard. And to pass my guard, you have to land in either on my back, side control, or mount. Okay. The reason is you don't really want to be in the guard, because anytime you're in there, there's a good chance I'm going to try and, attack you by sweeping you or submitting. I'll explain what that is. And then I'll go straight into it. And it's very common that I see them very nervous straight away. We're going to go straight away. I go, yeah, let's just play. Let's have fun. They're like, but I don't know what to do. And it's like, I know you don't. And I'm not expecting you to be able to pass. I just want to see you try. And then, okay, so I free them up to not have any expectations and not feel like they have to do anything. And I go, just start playing around. And you see them, they start playing around and they have no idea what they're doing and they're using too much energy. But then suddenly you'll see them do something. They'll throw your legs out of the way and they'll get 5% of a guard pass and they get excited and they get something work for them and they start playing around. And I do that for 20, 30 minutes and I'll swap around. I'll play guard so they can see what I'm doing and they can play guard. And they have no idea what they're doing. But at the end of the class, or not even by the end, through the class, I'll give them ideas and tips or concepts. And I'll say, look, this is what's happening here because of you're doing this, or this is what's happening here. I don't get too technical. It's just more of an overall thing. I might look at their posture and say, your back's really bent. So you're trying to pick up my legs with bent back. So imagine if you're trying to do a deadlift with a really bent back, you're going to hurt your back. What do? You use your legs, you straighten your back. So I try and fix their posture maybe a little bit or their movement. But I'm telling you, by the end of the class, they'll say especially if they've never done a class before, they'll say, I learned more in that half an hour than I have in the last 6 months. And it's not learnt from me. It's just discovered from themselves because they've been allowed to actually play around in a safe environment that's fun and enjoyable. And you see them, they get a good workout. They're excited because what they're doing is live and it's very safe. And I will introduce them to that, and then I'll just change the positions as we go. Like, okay, today we're like, let's say next session, we're going to work on half guard. Okay, this guard's for these reasons. Let's play here. And then I can get more and more specific to the point where, we can just do it whatever we want. But that's literally how I'll start someone, is by playing with them and creating an environment that allows them the confidence to be creative and play around. And I explain to them very quickly, there's no techniques that always work, and there's no technique that will always not work. Anything can work at the right time. So I don't want you to think like you're not allowed to do these things. I want you to know why you shouldn't do it and be aware of why you should do certain things. But the most important thing when I'm teaching them is why you're doing that. Because if you know why you're doing certain things, then you can change how you're doing it. And it kind of frees them up to be a little bit more creative. And you'll see they'll just, like Bruce Lee talks about with a sculptor, they'll start removing the things that are, unnecessary and useless, and start getting a little bit tighter.
It's super interesting. We follow some of the same ideas, and we've never talked before, and I've never watched your stuff, but especially in the beginning, I think people let's say it's escape side control day. And all they do is escape side control. Like, okay, I put you in side control and you do the move 10 times and then switch. And then I do the move 10 times. And it's like, Jesus Christ, it gets fucking boring, And like, it's just, for me, the reason that I came up with the way I do is because it's just fucking boring. Like that is just boring, So we do this like flow thing, where I don't know if it's escape side control day, we'll start with like the single leg. We'll show them how to do a single leg, right? Like I'm sure you show somebody how to do a single leg, right? And then boom. And now we're doing like guard passing, one-arm guard passing, but we take one person's arm away and like they're free. They get to do what they want, And then after I've shown the technique, like if you pass when it's still guard passing, you just stop and go back, right? Like you just move a little bit. But when I say, okay, side control, the person on top jumps to side control, right? And now you have to do the move and escape, And then you have to hit a reversal. And now you're on top and you're doing the one-arm guard passing. And it's like this, like they're doing so much, right? They're passing the guard, they're escaping side control. If I say up, then the person on bottom has to stand up in base because it's such an important skill. Right?
Yep.
Like they have to, up in base. And then whoever just stood up, they've got to hit the single leg. They're up and now boom on the single leg. And now they're doing the passing and the drill it's the same idea of stimulating the brain.
Yeah. So I love that, especially because it's not set. There's no like, you have to do this. It's everything.
Well, there's
requires...
one set thing. There's one set thing. You have to do the side control escape. Like I said.
Okay.
Right.
But regardless, it requires problem solving.
Yes.
So you constantly got to think and work your way through things, which I really like. And even with my warm-ups, I always try and have them being very thoughtful with what they're doing. The other thing I'll touch on with what you were saying there too, which is super important, is we learn more by association than anything else. And the reason why I like getting people to play in an area before I tell them exactly what I want them to do is because it creates a supply and demand type communication here, because I put them in a situation where I know they don't have the answers. I know they're going to come up with these problems. And then when they do, and I give them the answer, then it makes more sense. Like, how many times when we first started, right, someone says, don't do this and that. And it just goes through one ear and out the other because you have nothing to really grasp that with. But then 2 months down the track, someone says it again and you're like, that's what he meant then.
Or they're like, man, why didn't you ever tell me that? And you're like, yo, I told you that 30 times. But
yeah.
But they
just
couldn't
got
hear
nothing
it.
to stick it. Yeah. So I always try, and depending on the lesson and who I'm teaching, I'll try and create a scenario that I know they're going to struggle with, A, B, and C. And then I will give them A, B, and C, because at least they have something to grasp it with, rather than doing it the other way around. Otherwise, the information can just be lost a lot of the time.
No, that's so good. And I think the other thing too, where people really struggle with learning, especially jiu-jitsu, with move A, do move A, partner A does move A 50 times, partner B does move and then switch, right? Is only one person's engaged.
Yeah.
You need the other person paying attention. Like you need your uki, right? Your partner paying the fuck attention to where his body is.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to learn move A and he's giving you move B, then he's the one fucking up, or the teacher, right? Like, so if it's
it's hard to get someone to do that.
Yeah. Unless they have a job all the time too. Right? Like, unless it's like, well, okay, I'm the passer, you're the passee, and this is what we're working on.
Yeah, 100%. I think I had this conversation yesterday where I was talking about exercise, and I want to get fit, but the best way for me to get fit is in a sport environment because I'm motivated, because there's like a challenge for me. But if it's just me running and no one's watching me, then it's very easy for me to give up, And I feel like the same thing.
Job. I was going to do 30, but I did 20.
Yeah, and when someone's practicing a technique on you, and it's like you just sort of go with it. And you're half the time. You see people all the time; they're sitting there like, not even looking. Yeah, you do. Okay, it's my turn, and it's just very unrealistic. I mean, there's nothing. I have no problem with people drilling if it's very realistic and they can. But most people don't do it like that. Most people are just zoning off and like, oh, 1, 2.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a terror, and I think it's one of the problems that we're going to address in our instructionals for the teachers is, man, you can't teach jiu-jitsu like that. You can't teach armbar, switch, armbar. Yeah. Like that shit. It's fucking boring. And I hate
the good thing about it is it gives us a lot more clients. You know how many people come to me and they've trained for like a couple months or a year, and they'll say like, oh, I went to this guy. I won't say who they were. I went to this guy. I went to this guy. So what do they show you? And he's like, yeah, he showed me this guard pass, this sweep, and this arm bar, and this. And I'm like, can you remember? And he's like,
no.
Nah. I'm like, okay, let's go.
And they have no clue how to put it together. They have no clue of a when and a why and a where.
Yeah, it's like a little piece of the puzzle here and here and here, but there's no connection.
I do this when my partner does this.
Yeah.
Right? Like I knee slice, he sits up and pummels and gets on his elbow. These are the options that are open, A, B, C. You figure it out and you move and you keep this like movement state of nothing static, right? Like nothing static.
I understand why people, and there's a certain amount of people that come into jiu-jitsu and they want to be told, tell me exactly what to do. And it's very hard as a coach because there's no exactly what to do. There's multiple things you can do and there's multiple things they can do, and it's very hard. So I try and give them a bit of an example. Like I'll sit in that position. I say, look, this is what I want to do, but depending on how he reacts is going to, dictate on what I actually do. I can't just do A because he might just do 55 different things that, stop me from getting A. So then I have to switch to this and switch to that. And the education system kind of set that up a lot because, the industrial age model was built to create factory workers. And most schools are still using the same thing. So we've gone from going to school, getting told exactly what to do, repeating it, and then we're good. So we come to jiu-jitsu and like, okay, coach, tell me exactly what to do. I'm going to copy everything you say and I'm going to be great. It's like, it doesn't really work like that. One, you're a 5'4" female. I'm a 6'4", male. I'm not, but I wish I was. But it's very hard. So what I try, I think more coaches should be a lot more, aware of that and try and really become more self-aware in why you're doing certain things. Because if you can do that and you can give them why you're doing things, then you're giving them so much more than just how to do it. How to do it's like the tip of the iceberg. Why to do it is all that shit underneath.
Yeah, it's so important because, like you said, because everyone's different and the move's never the same.
No,
the answer's never the same. It's
I mean, realistically, me and you have never ever done the same move exactly twice. There'd be like very similar versions of a lot of it, but they'll never be exactly the same.
Look, I follow a lot of John Donner systems. I think they're very well thought out, and I love them, but I haven't done it. Like, I'm like, I had to move I had to move my hip here this time, and he couldn't teach me that. I had to teach me that. Yeah. So I have this saying for my students, like, look, I can't teach you jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I can't. I can give you concepts and ideas and I can show you how to do a particular thing, but you're going to teach yourselves, like you guys are on your own. I'm here for like a little guidance.
I mean, 100%. Like what the goal of the student is to get the best out of themselves. And you cannot, as a coach, mechanically get the best out of someone else. But what you can do is you can create as best an environment as you can for the student to get the best out of themselves.
And I would say that goes technically, right? Like with how you teach the moves and the culture of the school. I think the culture of the school is so important, you know? If you're not taking care of everyone from the fighter to the soccer mom, then the sheep eat the wolves, and you know, and the wolves eat the sheep. The fuck,
yeah,
you know?
I was picturing a sheep in the wolf.
Like, damn, that's a badass sheep, right?
Yeah, and it really did, like a lot of that depends on what your goal is as a school. For example, for me as a coach, my goal isn't to create world champions. That's not what I want to do. And one, because the percentage of students that are or want to be world champion is like 0.1. What I'm trying to teach is everybody. You know, I want to to help everyone get the best out of themselves. So I think there's too many coaches that, especially professional athletes, that create programs out there that are creating programs that are really for professional athletes, and your market is so small. Like if you're getting for example, if you're getting an instructional from someone that trains 4 to 5 times a day, is on a special diet, you know, it's going to be very different to most likely yourself. I don't mean you, but just the person out there, because are you training 4 times a day? Do you work a full-time job? Do you have other things? Most people are like that. I mean, I'm like that as well. I have like 10 different things I like doing. So they're the ones I want to get, is the one that have, you know, the hour or 2 or 3 a week that want to try and get the best out of themselves and understand jiu-jitsu more and understand how they learn to structure their training to get more out of it. Not the person that's coming to train 4 or 5 times a day. You know, you're better off with a school that wants to do that is strictly competition based.
Yeah. Have you ever heard John Wooden's definition of success? You kind of touched on it there.
No.
Being self-satisfied that you gave 100% of your effort in the moment.
Yeah, that's I really like that. I think once I changed my mental state to that for competition, I felt so much more free and less sort of stuck on, you know, having to win. It's like, well, look, and I tell my students that all the time. It's like, if you go out there and you do the best and you make you do the decisions you make as good as what you could in the moment, that's all you can do. That's a win. Regardless of what happens, that's a win. Yeah, if you win, even better. It's a double win.
Better. Dude, I agree with you. I started winning like this. Like I had never, in the prime of my athletic career, I had never beat a black belt champion. Like never. When I was, I beat Vinny in MMA, but I didn't beat him in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I never, you know, I always lost that match, you know, because I stopped competing pretty much right when I moved full-time MMA when I got my black belt.
Yeah.
So nothing, and I'd never won, but but then, have a MMA career, come back, and I, had some issues, but through my awakening, I like to call it my spiritual awakening, I came to this, where what you're talking about. And bro, I beat champions as an old fucking man, right? Like as an old man running a school with, right. And you're like, all right, word, just because I freed myself up, I freed my mind up to allow a physical performance to come. Yes.
You do so much better. I think and a lot of people, especially competitors, they don't really realize where they're at a lot of the time, because one, they're trying to make up for a lack of skill in athleticism. So they let's say, and this is a shortcut that a lot of people fall into, okay, I want to get fit and I want to get strong for competition. And for me, it was always well, I do understand how that helps in competition, but it also slows you down in the long run, because ideally to learn more, you want to put yourself in a position where you can, you can be exposed a lot more in training. And the weaker and the less physically inclined you are, obviously the more technically you're going to have to develop and force yourself to develop. And it is a little bit of a catch-22 in training. It's well, you get super fit and strong, you're going to do better in competition, but your training is going to suffer a little bit. Or you get, very lazy and efficient, and your training is going to go, but your competition is going to suffer. But I think in the long run, you're going to develop much better by putting yourself, and I think you can be fit and strong and be very intelligent with your training. Let's say you're going with someone that's not as good as you. Don't use your athleticism, don't use your strength. But it's very hard for a lot of people to do that, to be able to really pull back on their athleticism.
I call it going on a diet. I tell my students, you have to go on a jiu-jitsu diet. You're only allowed to, I'm only allowed to see this. If we're working, if I have my competitors,
Yep.
right? I'm like, okay, we're working on back attacks.
Mm-hmm.
This is all you get. You can do whatever else you want to get to the person's back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you got to make this like this series, and I'm never like it has to be this move because like you have 3 options in the series, right? Of how these are the only ways you're allowed to finish.
Yeah.
But coach, the Kimura is right there. Yeah, that's amazing. I know. Figure out how to get to the back off that, right? Like,
yeah.
And then, once you've lost the weight, now we can move on to a different diet.
That was definitely a lot of my training when I was coming up, and I felt like I was very smart. I was very conscious with, let's say, my skill attributes. Like I knew that, for example, I was very good at Kimuras when I first started. I finished one competition with 17 Kimuras in Australia.
Holy shit.
And like I got that good. So I was like, okay, now let's not do Kimuras now. Let's do this. And then when I got good at this, let's do this. And it was the same thing. Like my passing was really good, but my guard wasn't that good. So I was like, I made sure that in training, I'm just playing guard, even though I get beaten by more people that I would usually beat. But then my guard got really good. And then I would go back to passing, and it would always be like sort of coming up and going and trying to make sure that I was very well rounded. But I definitely considered, like, even with the takedowns, I worked top game, I worked guard, I worked submissions. I was always trying to be very well rounded, where I feel like so many people, and this can work better for your competition, is you become super specific with your, let's say, your no-gi only, leg lock only. Well, you could probably win all those super fights and stuff like that. Are you going to be a great coach? Maybe not. Maybe you are. Who knows? But too many people they pigeonhole themselves in a certain area just to get better success competitively, where I didn't really like that. I wanted to be very well-rounded. I think that goes in my lifestyle as well. I mean, like I was saying before, I play games, I play music, I try and learn acting. I'm trying to do a lot of different stuff because I find more joy in playing with different things all the time. I get kind of bored if I'm playing with the one thing.
My wife makes fun of me. I hear you with that. Like she says, do you do anything to make money? Like, do you actually work and get paid? Because I won't do it. Right? Like I will not attach my time to my dollar. No fucking way. It's the poison of the world, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
Because if you can figure out how to make that really high, like a lawyer, then you're fucking working all goddamn day, fucking pushing a button, right? And like, what else do you do, man? To me, that's just fucking devilish.
Yeah, I think Alan Watts said that.
Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he said,
I won't do it.
He asks questions to students that were finishing high school and university, and so the question you would ask is, what would you do? How would you spend your life or every day if money were no object? And when they finally figure out what that is, he says, well, go and do that and forget about the money. Because if you focus on the money, you're going to be doing things that you don't like to make enough money to continue to do things that you don't like.
Exactly.
And
I remember.
It's just a crazy cycle.
It's terrible.
Yeah. And you do have to, there's a risk. And I mean, there's a risk in anything, but you have to have the confidence that, like, if you do what you like, eventually there's always a good way to make money through doing it. And it's usually a lot more money because you get very good at it because you enjoy doing it.
You get so good at it. You get amazing at it. I read that book called Mastery. Have you ever read Mastery by Robert Greene?
No, I've heard of it. It's definitely on my list of having to read.
It's about becoming a master.
Really?
Yeah. And you have to go through this apprenticeship phase. He's like, look, we've just taken out the apprenticeship phase. Like people learn something for a year and then they think they're fucking amazing. Where it's like, look, take the 7 to 10 years, become a fucking master. And then when you become a master, people are going to ask you for it. Yeah. Because you're going to be it doesn't even matter what it is. Make a fucking clock. I just happen to look up at my clock, right? Like who fucking cares? If you make the best clock, then people are going to be like, yo, I want that dude's clock.
Yeah. Suddenly you're the fucking millionaire selling these weird ass clocks.
Exactly. It doesn't matter.
I do and there's definitely something that I've realized with learning and playing with different things. I started learning snowboarding last year. You ever go snowboarding?
No, man, I'm a 2-planker. I ski.
Oh, you ski? Okay. Yeah. So I never did that in my life. Did you grow up doing it?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. And, I started snowboarding and man, I reckon I fell 600 times that weekend. And I was lucky because I do a lot of wrestling. So I was quite good on falling and stuff like that. If that had been anyone that hadn't had been thrown so much, oh my God, there's no way they would have kept doing it. But I knew that like, okay, I'm going to suck a lot. I'm going to fall over a lot. And I just got to keep getting up and keep getting up. And I'm going to figure out why I'm doing it and start stopping the things that I'm falling for. And I remember there was a guy that was following me at one stage, and this is my second day of snowboarding. And he was so impressed I was going down. So he sped up to try and tell me, "Kid, you look like a pro." And then as he's about to say it, I just ate shit. I just fell smashed on my chest. But he laughed because he goes, "You fell so hard, you jumped straight back up and just kept going." And he goes, which impressed me because most people fall like that and then you get the jitters and you don't want to do it. And I even had the jitters after doing it, but I just wanted to get straight back on because I didn't want it to slow me down. I'm like, okay, cool. I've fallen over, get back up, just figure that out again. And I've done probably now 11 days of snowboarding all up, but I feel very good. Like I was going off piste and everything. There's some videos online. But the point was I just threw myself in there, tried, understand I'm going to fail. I'm going to make a lot of, hurt myself, embarrass myself. Like, one kid watched me just go, bup, 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 bup. And he's like tiny. He's like, "Are you okay, mister?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, I think so." Like snow all over my face. But I understand that. And with my biggest goal right now is to make it in acting. And I know that, okay, it's not going to happen so quick. It's going to be a 10-year journey, and people in 10 years, most likely in 10 years in my mind, I'm going to make it. And people are going, "Oh, you come out of nowhere." It's like, no. You didn't see all that crap, all these little things and failures. Like they didn't see me at Groundlings improv, pretending to be a bloody cat on a musical, singing songs, improvising, dancing like a cat, feeling like an absolute idiot, embarrassed and stuff. They don't see all that crap for me to finally, be in the position where, okay, now I can do big movies.
Did you watch the Super Bowl yesterday?
I didn't.
Okay,
I didn't.
Well, Shakira and J-Lo were the fucking.
I did see that though.
Of course,
it was great.
It was amazing. I thought. What I thought was great, man, is like, dude, look at what Shakira. Like, I'm just going to use Shakira. Look at what she did. She played the guitar. She danced. She tap danced. She sang. She played the fucking piano. Right? Like that's what it takes. Like you're like, oh, she's this huge star now, man. She came up. No, she didn't. She was a fucking little kid learning tap.
Yeah.
Right? And then she was a little kid learning jazz dance, and then she was playing the guitar, and then she was playing the piano. That's a lifetime's work of mastery.
Yeah.
And work. Like she's not up there only because she's got a nice ass and she's beautiful and she can sing. Like they can't put her on a halftime show.
There's so much work in it. Even like with the acting, right? I mean, I'm not just learning how to act. I'm learning how to write. I'm learning how to direct. I'm learning how to film because there's so much. You need to understand so many different things. And it's the same with jiu-jitsu. I'm not just learning jiu-jitsu. I'm learning wrestling. I'm learning judo. I'm learning psychology. I'm learning everything to help with that because there's so many different facets that have, especially like I'm sure you would have read like Sun Tzu's Art of War and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's so much awesome psychological warfare that you can use not only in jiu-jitsu but in life. But if you really if you want to be good at something, you have to throw yourself in and you have to really pull as much information as you can to help with whatever it is you're doing.
I think you just like whatever you learn you so much. Right. And then when you know like this is who the motherfuck I am, when you have that so down, the sky's the limit, right? Like the sky's the limit. It's like, take it back to the money thing we were talking about. Once you can figure out like how to make money work rather than make money, dude, yeah. it's like, you don't, what do you want me to do? But and then once I figure one little thing out, I go and pay someone to do that shit. So that you're right. So like, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to move on to something else. Like, yeah, I get a little bit here and then I get a little bit there and boom, boom, boom. And
yeah, you delegate.
You're fucking, it's not a money thing. It's a learning thing and it's an ego thing.
And I think especially for my business, I'm always trying to there's a lot of things I'm good at and there's a lot of things I'm really not good at. And I'm always trying to get people to do the things that I'm not good at. Like I'm terrible with paperwork and all that kind of stuff. So I've got someone to do my paperwork. It's just much more efficient for me to get someone and pay them a little bit of money because I know, okay, I got to pay them a little bit of money, but because they're on there, my business is going to be making so much more. And I'm definitely at the same stage as you, like for my confidence, to some extent, I'm like, I know I can do whatever I want. But my question is my camera gone blurry right now?
Yeah, it did. It just went blurry.
I wonder why it does that. I'll see if it can. Is it fixing itself up?
It did a second ago, but now there we go. Yeah, there we go.
Brand new camera. I don't even know how to work it. I'm always thinking, okay, what am I willing to put the effort into getting? Is my question. And a lot of it, for most things, it's not. I'm not willing at all. But there's certain things that I am. You know what I mean? Sure. It's one things that I enjoy. Poker's another thing I started learning recently, about a year ago. Do you play poker at all?
I do a little bit. Yeah, I was way into it for a while. I had a buddy who was a pro player.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I love it. I mean, I hate it and I love it at the same time. But I think it's a really good learning curve, and you learn a lot about yourself. Like, for example, going in, you're in a big hand and it's like a $1,500 hand where you know that, okay, let's say you're bluffing and your heart is like racing and you're like, please fold, you little fucker, please fold, and all that kind of, I think it's a great lesson. And there's so much psychology, science, acting, anthropology in that. I find that is another really interesting.
Dude, I was sitting at a poker table with my friend who was a pro once, and we were sitting at a limit game. This was before the huge craze when limit was still kind of a thing.
Okay.
You know, and like these two guys, in a limit table, when you get to the river, you can just keep going at each other until everyone eventually is all in.
Oh, okay. So there's no limit on.
There's no limit on how
much.
Right. So where normally there's a limit on the flop and the turn, there's a limit.
Yeah.
All you can do is call right now, so that the next card comes, right?
Yeah.
Well, once the river's out, you can just boom, 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 boom. And these guys were just doing that, right? And they can only do it at the limit, so like they were going to go all in.
Yeah.
So my friend just stops the table and he goes, "Hey," and he claps. He goes, "Look, you have the queen 10 of diamonds and you have the queen 10 of hearts." And he called their suit, like who had which suit of the queen 10, you know? Because there was another queen and another 10 out there, and no, two 10s. Yes, right. So they both had the same full house, right? But he had it down to the fucking suit because he was paying attention throughout the whole time, like how they looked at the card when a diamond came out or when a queen came out. I was like, Jesus Christ, bro! It was obvious that they both had the full house.
Yeah,
that was obvious.
Yeah.
But to know which guy had which suit, I was like, yo.
That's great. I've seen, I think Daniel Negreanu's done some stuff like that. And, every now and then I'll always like pretend, like try and guess what they have. And 90 times out of 100, I'm wrong. But every now and then I'm right. I'm like, and I look so good when I do it too. And they're just like,
I can get the cards sometimes. I can get you know what I mean?
Suits fucking hard.
The suits are fucking hard, right?
Yeah.
Like the suits, like I can get like, okay, you got the fucking sevens full of sixes, perfect. But I don't know that I don't know which one you have.
Yeah. Yeah. I posted something on my Instagram last night. I had pocket jacks.
Okay.
Against 6-7 offsuit. I pre-raised the flop to, I think there were $2 big blinds to $15. And then on the flop comes 6-7-2, I think it is. And
so he hit a monster.
Yeah, he's got two pairs straight away. Yeah.
Right.
I bet a lot more. He calls. Next one comes another 7. So now I've got. So I'm like, okay, I got 2 pair here. I still should be good. He's full, and then a 7 on the turn. So I'm like, fuck. I'm like, okay, I got a full house. I'm sure I'm good. And then fucking quad jacks. I'm like,
quad jacks. Yeah. You're never thinking quads, right? You are never thinking quads.
Man, never. It happened the other day. I had a king as well. There was 3 jacks on there. I had the king. There was a king out there as well. So I'm like, I feel like I should be good. There's no ace out there. And I didn't think he had aces. So I thought maybe it's a chop, and he had a jack. And fuck, quads.
Fuck. I'm sorry. All right, man. That's I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, man.
I'm going to end it here. I'd love to exchange information once I stop the recording. So
for sure.
So, but man, Kit Dale, tell everyone where they can find you.
Well, you can find me either on Facebook or Instagram. Instagram is Kit Dale Official. Facebook's Kit Dale. There's a page and a profile. And if you want to check out the online products, you can go to theartofmasteringjiujitsu.com or kitdaletraining.com to make it shorter. And I have all my products up there.
Sounds good, man. Hey, I really appreciate you you taking the time and us building a relationship and a friendship. I think it's super important in the world, and let's stay in touch for sure.
Likewise, man. Cheers.
All right, guys, everybody go out there and find your power.